The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, depending on where you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar featuring Ribbon Communications, Mida Solutions, and Switch Connect. Today we'll be talking about call center capabilities for Microsoft Teams and how you can monetize those solutions utilizing our partnership. And today we will have three presenters from each company presented here. We have Dwight Morris, Solutions Marketing Manager from Ribbon. He will talk about Teams, what it is, and where Teams Call Center comes into play, along with what the Microsoft phone system means for resellers across the world. We also have Giovanni Miedu, Business Manager for Mida Solutions. He will talk about Mida LiteCallCenter LCC, which runs on the Microsoft Azure cloud alongside the Ribbon SBC SWe Lite, which provides a simple, secure, certified solution. And then finally, we have Rohan Milne, who's the global CEO of Switch Connect, and he will talk about how Switch Connect leverages their Microsoft expertise and adds Mida LCC to present service providers with a Teams call center solution that they can sell with their SIP trunk offerings to end customers. And thank you again for joining us for this webinar. We're excited to have you here. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them on the chat window, or the Q&A window, excuse me, and we'll aim to answer questions as we can, depending on how much time we have at the end of the webinar. And with that, we will transition to Dwight, who will get this webinar started.
Thank you, John. By now, you've probably all heard of Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams, in our context, is really what we like to talk about is the phone calling capabilities from there. However, Microsoft Teams is a lot more than that. Microsoft Teams is persistent chat, it's file sharing, you can do project management. There's a lot of plugins and add-ons that you can use with it. It is very simple to use, and it comes with the enterprise licenses from Microsoft Office 365. That has made it very popular. In fact, it is the most popular business application in the history of Microsoft. And you can see here, in just the first 2 years of its existence, they've had more than 500,000 organizations using Teams, right? That's 9 out of 10 companies in the Fortune 100, and it's available in a number of different places, 181 different markets, with support for 44 languages, and they keep adding to that on a monthly basis. That's one of the things about Teams, is that it is a cloud-based application. It comes with Office 365, and so what you'll see is that they add features and functions on a monthly basis. And then the last statistic that we have here is that there are 10,000, there are 150 organizations with at least 10,000 users. So it's not just small and medium businesses that are using this. It's very large enterprises. One of the things, go back please. One of the things about Teams, though, and again I touched on it at the beginning, is that it is their strategic direction for making phone calls. What they used to have was Skype for Business, and they brought that to Skype for Business Online. And now what they've said, and they said this back in at Microsoft Ignite in 2017, almost 2 years ago now, that they're bringing comprehensive calling and meeting capabilities into Teams, and they've done that on a month-by-month basis to the point where they are pretty much a one-to-one comparison with what was Skype for Business Online. They're still adding things to get to the same feature set that they had with Skype for Business on premises, but what they are saying is that Teams is the primary client for what they're calling intelligent communications. So intelligent communications is more than just voice. It's also video, it's web conferences, it's chat, it's being able to collaborate with all of your colleagues. And we had a study that we did this spring that pretty much says the same thing, that no matter kind of what size you are, almost everyone is planning to go to Teams. Now, the much smaller organizations, between 1 and 20 employees, they might not be aware. And if you've ever been in a small startup, you understand that your main concern isn't the technology that you're using, it's the stuff that you're trying to bring to market, right? But as the organizations grow, you can see that more and more they are aware of Teams, and they are either already deployed or they are planning to deploy it sometime in the future. So what is the calling in Teams? Well, I talked about this before. Microsoft Office 365 is cloud-based. Within Office 365, there is Microsoft Teams. And then there's another thing in Microsoft Office, which is the phone system. The phone system is basically all of the capabilities that allow the Microsoft customers to make phone calls. The phone system was previously known as Cloud PBX with Skype for Business Online. It is now phone system. And although there are some slight differences in the way that Skype for Business Online and Teams handles things, the phone system is basically there for each of them. So it is their cloud-based PBX. Now, there's two ways to get from that cloud-based PBX to the PSTN, right? One is Microsoft calling plans. So the Microsoft calling plan, you can use Microsoft as your telephony provider, and they can give you your numbers and you can make phone calls from your business. The other is more recent, and by more recent I mean in the last year actually. They've said that you can now connect using your own SIP trunk. You can bring your own SIP trunk, you can keep your own provider and use what they call direct routing. The reason why they call that direct routing is because you can take that SIP trunk and route it directly up into the phone system, and then that way you're connecting your own calling plan to Microsoft and to Teams. And so this is sort of how it looks like. A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So we all like diagrams. Here's a diagram. If I am using a Microsoft calling plan, this is sort of how it works. Over on the right, on the bottom, you can see that that's my business, right? I've got Teams people in my office, and what they do is they connect up through my internet service provider to the Office 365 cloud. Now that Office 365 cloud is on the Azure cloud. Okay, so that will come into play in a little bit. And then the phone system, as I mentioned, is part of that Office 365 cloud. Their calling plans connect the phone system to the PSTN. So the way that someone in your office building would make a call out to the PSTN is it would route up to the Office 365 through your internet service provider, and then they would connect to the PSTN through the calling system. However, through the phone system, excuse me. However, there's limited availability. These Microsoft calling plans are not available throughout the world, and our esteemed colleagues will talk a little bit more about that and what you can do to kind of get around that. So what this says is in our survey, we also asked, after you deploy Microsoft Teams, are you going to still be using your current telephony provider, right, to make phone calls? And the vast majority said that they were. So I just told you that you could buy a Microsoft calling plan to make those phone calls through Teams. However, what the market is saying is that they don't really have any plan to do that. So that brings up the other way to connect to the PSTN, and that is through direct routing, right? If you use your service provider calling plan and you bring your own SIP trunk. On the bottom right again, you've got your enterprise, and it connects out through your service provider. But now instead of going to the phone system and using their calling plan, what you're doing is you're going through a session border controller. That session border controller is going to be able to route the calls. It's going to be able to secure the phone calls. We can connect to that through encrypted lines, and that way no one can eavesdrop. It also does things like protect you from denial of service attacks and that sort of thing. So now we put that SBC, the session border controller, in between you and the phone system, and that's what allows it to interact and then to place the calls. And your service provider is the one that's connecting to the PSTN. One thing to note here is that the SWe Lite from Ribbon is a session border controller that is also available on the Azure cloud. And the reason why that's important is because if you've ever made a voice over IP phone call, you understand that they're not always 100% quality, right? Where some people will cut out, or their voice will start to waver a little bit. And that's normally because of latency in the network. Because you're sending the voice traffic to one place, and then it gets rerouted to another place, and then by the time it gets to the person that you're trying to call, there's latency, there might be some lost packets, and when you put those real-time communications packets back together, when you lose some of them, then you're going to get these conditions where the voice quality is not as good. So having that SWe Lite SBC in on the Azure cloud, on the same network as the phone system, is going to help you to kind of raise the quality of those calls. So by doing this in this way, you're going to be able to stay with, customers are going to be able to stay with their existing service provider. And if you're their service provider, then you're happy about that. And the fact that the Ribbon SBC SWe Lite is available in Azure is going to raise the quality of that service that you're providing. So that said, let's take a look at kind of how it works. And this is a little techie, but so that you understand what happens when somebody makes a call. What we have here is a diagram. You see the person in the top left, that's a Teams user. They're going to be making a call. And what they do is they use the phone system. The phone system is on the Azure cloud. So everything in that dotted line is in the Azure cloud, and that includes the SWe Lite session border controller. So the phone system has a call controller, because you have to send the signal up there so that it knows where who you're trying to connect to, and how to connect that call. And then the media processor is for the actual audio that's going through, right? So I need to know, not everybody deals with the same codecs. So when I am speaking I'm sending the information from one place to another, I need to know how to send that over so that they can interpret that on the other end. The other thing that's a part of this is a PSTN hub. So within the Microsoft phone system, they need to know how to get things out to the PSTN. And the PSTN hub is what's going to allow it to make that call and to figure out how it is that call is going to get routed out to the PSTN. And then there's also a SIP proxy, and that comes into play because Microsoft Teams uses HTTP REST to do the signaling, whereas most of the rest of the world is using SIP to do that signaling. And so they need a SIP proxy to take and translate the HTTP REST to SIP. And then the third piece is a big old database that they've got in there, and the database is what keeps track of how to route the calls and the different configurations. It'll also keep track of the call detail that you have after the fact. If you have any policies with regard to calling, for instance, you don't want your employees dialing a 900 number or something that's going to cost money, a toll number, then you can have voice policies and it'll stop from doing that. And it also talks about how the SBC trunk is configured. So when I make a call from Teams, it goes directly to the call controller, and that is the signaling. It says, I want to connect to this person. And then the call controller queries that database and figures out how to forward that call along. The call controller then says, okay, let's go to the PSTN hub to find out where that goes, and the PSTN hub can query the database to find out how to place that call. The PSTN hub is also going to give the information to the media processor. It knows where it's going, so it also knows what type of codec it needs to use. And then it sends the information to the SIP proxy. In this case, what we're doing is we're using Teams direct routing, right? We don't have a Microsoft calling plan, so the PSTN hub is saying, all right, well, this is going to go through the session border controller, so I'm going to send the information, the signaling information, to the SIP proxy so that it can translate it and send that to the SBC. And it does that, it translates it to SIP, and now the SBC is going to be able to connect that call. The media is going to go through the media processor here. And what that does is it sends the audio information to that media processor. That media processor then sends that along to the SBC. And then at the end of the call, all of the information about that call, the details, the CDRs can be stored so that you can take a look at what happened, if there are any issues, or you can find out trends with regard to quality. So that's how it works, right? Now what we have is we have everybody that is connected through Teams to the PSTN. We're doing that through direct routing. We're doing that through their existing service provider, or they can choose a new service provider if they want. But as a service provider, once you've got them connected, right, and it's a great opportunity to have all of these Microsoft customers be open to you, what you really want to do is provide them with services over the top of that connectivity. And one of the prime candidates for that is call center solutions. And so I'm going to hand this off to Giovanni from Mida Solutions, and he'll talk to you about what you can do with regard to call center solutions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dwight, for your introduction, and welcome everybody to this webinar. Now, let me introduce briefly Mida Solutions. We are an Italian company based in Padova. For those who don't know Padova, Padova is a city close to Venice, so very good location for visiting us and good opportunity to extend your visit to Venice if you want. The company was founded in 2004 by a team of engineers with over 20 years of experience in telecommunications and focusing on unified communications. And our mission, as you see here, is to provide value-added solutions and technologies for communications, and in particular for unified communications. Now, if we move to the next slide, we show here the main two products that we want to talk about today. Now, we've defined this a winning proposition because discussing with the Mida people, the Ribbon people, we have identified our products and Ribbon SBC as a good proposition, as a strong business case for service providers, because our products complement in a natural way with the SBCs that Ribbon are providing. So we are talking about, as Dwight said, call center features and recording features. Now, our call center product is called LiteCallCenter, and Lite is actually pointing to the fact that our pricing is very attractive. As we used to say, we are light in price, not light in features. In fact, our call center comes with a full spectrum of routing algorithms and distributing algorithms, from very basic, like broadcasting a call to all the agents, to the most complex one, like skill-based call distribution. It is complemented with a web-based operator console that can be used to have an enhanced experience for managing calls, and is also available for visually impaired operators. So there are cases where people working at call centers have visual problems. So we are compatible with products that make their life easier. And it comes with a full set of real-time and statistic reports for managing the call center. The companion product, if you want, is our voice recorder, Mida Rec. Voice recorder is frequently used or mandated in some environments, especially those that are mission critical or relevant or very critical in the service they provide. Our recorder comes with optional encryption and compression. It may be required, may be useful if the volume of calls to be recorded is very high. It comes with tools like call matching and call probing, which fundamentally make sure that every call that comes through the call center is actually recorded correctly. And it can be monitored using SNMP and mail alarms. It's a multi-environment and multi-technology recording platform. It can apply, of course, to the voice over IP scenarios that we have seen. But as well, it applies to legacy scenarios where you might have some analog or E1 or TDM connection. And finally, it comes with the call scenario reconstruction features, which is very useful in mission critical environment when an accident happens and someone wants to reconstruct how things went from a phone calls point of view. Now, moving to the next slide, here we can see how these products can be deployed in a real world. Now, of course, we've been talking about Microsoft Azure, and this is the first possibility that comes to mind. So we have seen Ribbon SWe Lite SBCs being deployed in Azure and providing a path to the PSTN. Our products can be deployed in Azure as well, and they will communicate with Ribbon for providing the services. The next possibility is quite the opposite, having everything on-prem. There are customers who don't like too much the cloud environment, or they can't use the cloud environment for corporate reasons. So we can be deployed on-prem, which means the customer purchases servers, installs servers on their data center, and then our products can run on them. And finally, next possibility is a mix between the two, of course. It's what we call a hybrid deployment, where one component runs in the cloud and the other component runs on-prem. Now, let's move to our network view. Now, Dwight has already shown very well how Microsoft Teams and Ribbon work together. Here you see how Mida call center and recorders fit into the picture. If you imagine a customer trying to get access to a call center, It will do that through the PSTN normally, but you could do it also using Teams. Why not? So Ribbon SBC will take this and route the call directly to our call center, which is connected to the Ribbon SWe Lite SBC through a SIP trunk. Now the call at this point will be queued up, and when an agent becomes available, it will be distributed to that agent. And the agent can be a Teams user, so it can be using a PC or any of the certified Teams terminals. It can be using our own operator console or a legacy SIP IP phone, and in this case it would interact with the Ribbon SBC through the SIP register. Or finally, next possibility is for the customer, for the agent, to be using Skype for Business. We've seen Skype for Business is still a reality. There are customers who are still using Skype for Business, but planning to migrate to Teams. And of course, it makes sense that we can support them in this migration. Now, moving forward to the next slide, I'll give you here an overview of our operator console. It's a web-based application that allows you to manage the calls as you would do with a normal phone, but of course with enhanced capabilities like having an integrated directory, corporate directory, having favorites, speed dials, memo, and of course some enhanced features like the possibility to selectively log in and log out from queues that you see on the bottom right corner, possibility to define your operator status as ready or not ready to handle calls, and also functionalities like after call work. And also, finally, we can integrate with external CRMs like Dynamics or Salesforce for having pop-ups with information about the call being handled. Now, next slide shows you another console that we make available, which is the Supervisor Console, where a supervisor can manage the whole center with real-time KPIs, near real-time KPIs as well, and alarms, as you see here on the max waiting time. The next slide shows a sample of one of the reports that come with the product, useful for managing the call center and providing your management information on how the call center is going. And finally, on the next slide, an overview of what we call the Playback Station. The Playback Station is the user interface to our recorder. So everything that goes through the call center can be recorded. And this is how an agent, an authorized agent, of course, will be able to retrieve the call. You see the query window on the left-hand side, and listen to the retrieved call. You have full feature for viewing the waveform of the conversation, playing, stopping, restarting the audio, and so on. Now, I hope I've been able to convey the added value of a call center in this context, and now we have a person who has all the expertise to couple this with Microsoft Teams in order to provide real-life services to their customers. So I will leave the floor to Rohan Milne of Switch Connect. Rohan, up to you now.
Thank you, Gianni. So yeah, just wanted to kick off and give you a bit of background in Switch Connect. We've been around since 2015. We actually have a global presence. We operate services for a number of our channel partners and carrier partners globally. We are a channel-based business based out of Australia, but have really jumped on the forefront to the Microsoft Teams environment. We come from a legacy hosted telephony, SIP trunking, TDM replacement type business, but we've really seen the uptake of Microsoft Teams over the last 12 months, which is actually becoming our number one selling product. So as we jump onto the next slide, so where do we sit in within the environment? So as we saw in the beginning in Ribbon's slide, where the rise of collaboration products are becoming the norm within the industry, as we've migrated from our on-premise TDM-based services to SIP trunking products to cloud-hosted PBX. And now we're seeing the evolution of that is rolling into collaboration-based services and integrating through the whole suite. And one of the forefront products within that suite is obviously the Microsoft Teams, which is rolled out with every Office 365 license now rolled out by Microsoft, rolls out Teams as the standard now rather than Skype for Business. So from the Switch Connect Teams calling offering, in what we've built is that connection piece between the PSTN or the carrier network through to Microsoft Teams. And then we've built a suite of over-the-top value-add services to fill in the gaps where Microsoft Teams phone system doesn't have offerings, or you've got a customer that has a inherent list of legacy platforms and solutions that they need to continue to support while moving to Microsoft Teams. So just some of them is mainly around enhanced call routing, supporting old analog. In Australia, fax is still big in certain markets, as well as door phone paging adapters, nurse call systems in healthcare. There's a bunch of requirements in the education sector. And then moving into call centers, contact centers, call recording services. So if we just click through 2 more clicks. So where does that fit in with Ribbon and Mida? From our SBC stack in delivering our Teams calling offering, we utilise the Ribbon virtualizer SBCs, the SWe Lites and SWe Calls, to provide that interconnectivity between our core Class 5 network, our hosted telephony platform, and our upstream carrier interconnections into Microsoft Teams. And then plugged into that, we have the Mida call center product and also the Mida Record, which we sell as combined offerings and also standalone offerings. And it really just comes to working with our partners and carrier partners who sell this product and who we deliver this product for, to deliver them that total end-to-end solution to take out to their customers. There's a lot of confusion around Microsoft Teams and what it can and can't do, and where Switch Connect comes in is putting that solution together and delivering it as a turnkey offering for not only our channel partners and resellers, but also our wholesale white label and carrier partners who we deliver this as a service for. As we move on to the next slide, just where it sits in, I know Dwight covered on this earlier. So you've got your Microsoft Office 365 stack, so your Microsoft Teams. You've now got the phone system license that kicks in, that delivers that phone system capability. There is a requirement currently that it needs to be an E-Series license, so either your E-Series 1, 3, or 5 licenses. It will be available in your business premium licensing shortly. It currently does operate, it's just not a supported deployment yet. And then you've got your 2 options, as we spoke about earlier, your Microsoft calling plans or direct routing. And as you can see, we've got the Switch Connect direct routing product in here. With the Microsoft calling plans, they only work in 3 regions around the world, US, UK, and a somewhat agreement in Australia. But as a company, Switch Connect, we're probably the second largest provider in the Australian market, providing direct routing services. And where we found that advantage is delivering in all the value-added services for our partners and helping them migrate call centers and legacy telephony in delivering that PSTN connectivity moving forward. If you jump onto the next slide. What we've gone through here, and this is what we work with our partners, everyone tries to understand how you make money from selling Microsoft Teams. Obviously, if you're migrating from your traditional PBX business or PSTN and SIP trunking, it's a very easy and tangible understanding, and even your hosted cloud PBX platforms that in where you make that revenue stream. And where we work with our partners around education and helping them build their product offering is understanding where those multiple recurring revenue streams and also upfront revenue can continue to come, and all the additional services work that can then bring to their business. So if we start from the left, obviously very clearly you've got your Office 365 licensing, and then your phone system add-on, and then the top icon is your audio conferencing. Microsoft Teams has a fantastic audio conferencing platform as well, which seamlessly integrates. And we're actually seeing a lot of partners now use this as a video conferencing replacement from a boardroom to boardroom type video conferencing, fixed video conferencing, which has traditionally been dominated by your Polycoms, your Cisco, your Lifesize, your Starleafs. We're now seeing that being integrated back into the Microsoft Teams to give that seamless environment from that anywhere, anytime, any device that the market's been going on about with the hosted of unified comms over the last 3 years. But now that's seamlessly coming out, and Microsoft has done a fantastic job in making that seamless and easy to use for customers. So that's where the first part of the recurring revenue, when you're looking at monetizing a Microsoft Teams offering to your customers, you can make up to 25% margin on selling Office 365 licensing by understanding how the Microsoft licensing model works. Obviously, the next part you then make your recurring revenue is, but by our partners, is by selling the PSTN connectivity. So obviously that you're SIP trunking into your Microsoft Teams environment. Obviously you then make your money there. You also then make it on any of those value-added services. So in this case, the Mida LiteCallCenter, or call recording, in selling those services to either add that as a value-added service or continue to migrate a legacy workload into a modern workplace environment. The next really big piece is where we see partners really miss out on the revenue is around the services revenue. There's not only the migration piece in working with the customer to understand their current telephony requirements and understand what those future requirements are, to not only document that, but then also migrate that call flow and set up across the new platform. And then the biggest revenue source we see now is around the services and training, is actually educating the partner in how to use Microsoft Teams as a collaboration platform. We will say if you're trying to move a customer just to Microsoft Teams to use it as a soft phone, it's a very expensive soft phone. And we've seen time and time again with partners who have gone down that way that the project just fails to get off the ground because it's hard to justify the ROI. But if a customer's embracing Microsoft Teams for what Teams is a whole of business collaboration and a productivity enhancement tool, adding the voice becomes just that evolution in migrating the workload to the modern workplace cloud with Microsoft. So there's a bunch of services worked in training and development, and we're seeing that to be actually become over 50% of the budget in actually rolling out Microsoft Teams is actually in that services training and enablement within the business. That it's actually developing a bunch of other project work for partners to actually go in and understand the customer's business and help them transform their business by utilizing the Microsoft Office 365 suite of products. And obviously in migrating to a cloud telephony system, there's still that hardware requirement from physical terminals, but we're actually seeing more and more that's migration to soft clients with headsets. So most people will buy a decent headset for their customers. And we're actually seeing the drop in hardware. We've done a number of deployments recently with partners where there have been 400 seat deployments where they've rolled out with 5 physical terminals. That most of that rollout now is becoming via soft client. And what we're seeing in most of the businesses is that the enterprise handset is now becoming the mobile phone. That it's the Microsoft Teams client on the mobile phone, and that becomes the enterprise handset. When they walk into the office, they roam onto the corporate Wi-Fi network. It's delivering that secure comms. It's fully encrypted end to end through the Office 365 suite, and we're actually seeing that the mobile phone now is becoming the actual handset. There's not the physical separate handset on the desk anymore. And then to wrap that services up, you then wrap a whole managed services contract around that to support that customer moving forward. So there's, as you can see, there's 3 or 5 revenue streams in which we're seeing partners really enhance and grow their business, which is adding revenue streams that they've never had before. Traditionally, also, we're finding a lot of telco partners now working with IT and managed services partners who have never traditionally done voice, who are looking to move into that voice space now that it's part of the Office 365. It's now all centrally managed through the Office 365 admin portal. So it makes add moves and changes a lot easier, that it's all centralizedly managed. We can jump through. So moving forward, how is this actually rolled out? So we roll this out in a couple of different methods for partners. Can either be rolled out in our cloud, public cloud, as Dwight said earlier. It can be in Microsoft Azure cloud, Amazon cloud. We've got a number in the IBM cloud also, or then also private cloud. So if customers have their own private cloud infrastructure, we can deploy this solution anywhere for them. And then on a global basis, we're one of few partners who actually can deliver local hop-on and hop-off numbers in most countries globally. So when you have customers with multiple offices around the world, you can now deliver that seamless single phone system deployment globally and have your multiple around the world inbound, outbound numbers, and actually deliver that the dream solution that the customers have been asking with global offices. So it's just a little bit around how you can embrace Microsoft Teams and really monetize that and drive revenue streams for you. As we jump into the next slide, a lot of customers ask us why we chose Ribbon and why we chose Mida. I think the decision to go with Ribbon was probably a more of a legacy decision. Prior to the merger, Genband and Sonos, we'd been a Genband partner for quite a few years, and then also a Sonos partner for SBCs. And really, as we saw the Ribbon brand merge that together, and also with the acquisition of Edgewater with the Edgemark devices, which we're now rolling out in the APAC region with Ribbon, we really see that as the end-to-end solution now to deliver and maintain that same quality of service from end to end, from the customer's premises right through to the cloud and back into our environment, and guaranteeing that service to the customer. A lot of customers love traditional TDM-based services because it was a physical copper cable, independent of everything else. Now, as everything moves into the IP land, everyone's had a very bad VoIP experience, and everyone wants to continue to deliver that high level of service. With the shut-off of ISDN networks now happening globally, especially in the Australian market, it's all meant to be wrapped up by the end of next year. So we're really saying Ribbon kind of has that complete suite, and we can deliver that whole guarantee of service end to end. And then Mida, as we looked out for call center solutions, we'd worked with them previously on our hosted platform, and then linking that into our Microsoft Teams environment. It was just one of the easiest integrations that we have done, and their team have just been really, really supportive and really helping us understand the product and how to build that into our product offering to deliver those value-added services to our customer. And it's just a product that works. Every customer that we've shown it to loves it. It's easy to use, and it just becomes that really good value add service to us. So I think that's all I have. I think we're handing back over to John for a bit of Q&A session.
Yep. Thank you, Rohan. Great. This is excellent. And just to wrap up here, we'll get to our Q&A, but first I want to mention that Mida Solutions and Ribbon will be at Microsoft Inspire on July 14th through 18th. We'll be at booth 3004, and this event is in Las Vegas, Nevada. So if you plan on attending or are considering attending, we will be there. Please feel free to visit us. We'll be talking about a lot of what you just heard on this webinar, even in more detail about these advanced functionalities for call centers, use Microsoft Teams, and some of the environments that we can support, and really getting at some good discussions. Feel free to come and visit us. We'll be happy to speak with you. And of course, with all you just learned, you might be thinking, hey, how can I learn more? How can I contact the experts here and possibly get started? Well, we have our website links here, which we'll also send you via email today so that you can get in contact with the experts right away. Now, Dwight, do we have any questions in the Q&A window?
Actually, we do have a few. Thanks, John. The first one is from Mike, and he's asking, Rohan, I think this is for you. Do you send the calls, the Teams calls, to the service provider over a shared IP address or a unique address for each end user customer?
It really depends on how you have your environment set up. So there's a number of different ways to do it. It depends on that integration. You can either do it on an individual trunks perspective, or you can do a shared trunk. It just depends on how you want that to route back into your network. Most providers, when we're delivering this as a service for them, will deliver a single trunk to our platform that will then splice off to the individual Office 365 tenants. And that really comes down to, there's a discussion to have around how you wish to price your integration to Microsoft Teams. If you want to do it on a concurrent channel basis, like your traditional SIP trunking services, or you want to do it on a per user basis. There's a few different options. It just depends on what product offering you want to take to the market.
All right, thank you. And here's one for you, Giovanni. Is Mida Rec available with a team solution? And what about point-to-point calls?
Yeah, so as we have discussed before, Mida Rec is available to record calls coming from Teams by integrating with Ribbon SBC. So that's definitely one possibility. I think the question here points to the possibility of a sort of API integration with Teams for recording purposes. The status at this moment, as far as I know, is that Microsoft is supposed to at some time provide APIs for doing that, but I don't think we are there yet. So at the moment, we are definitely going to the SBC route for recording, and whenever Microsoft will provide the APIs, we will, of course, integrate in that way. Not sure I understand point to P2B calls exactly. What is it? You said point-to-point calls, Dwight?
Yeah, he said P2P. I expected that means point-to-point.
I think what he's meaning is peer-to-peer calls. I'll just jump in here, being that we have quite a lot to do with Microsoft. Just to cover off on what Gianni was talking about there. So with the Mida call recording software, you can do PSDN into Teams and obviously Teams out to PSDN. You can't currently use it to record client-to-client calls. As the Microsoft, the API we're referring to is the Microsoft Calling API. It's currently in beta and it's not due out to GA to last date I heard from Global Product Management was the end of August. but I have heard rumors that it's been pushed out to September now. So with the calling API, you'll see a lot more deep, rich integration into the native Microsoft call queues and call management and call recording, as Microsoft opens up that SDK and API stack to pull that data directly out of Teams. The current only way to kind of record peer-to-peer type calls is by doing it via a scheduled meeting. If you schedule a meeting and record it as a peer-to-peer using the audio conferencing capability, that will then record the call and upload it to Stream for you. That's currently the only option to record peer-to-peer calls.
Thank you, Rohan. Giovanni, can you use your LiteCallCenter without having Teams in the mix?
Yes, of course. I mean, our call center product was developed many years ago. It started with different technologies, and now we in the last year or so we've understood the potential behind Microsoft Teams, and we've decided to port the whole platform into Teams. But of course, as I said, it can work independently from Teams as a standalone platform. Yes.
Thank you. And is the Mida LiteCallCenter web client only, or can it be installed as a native client?
No, it's a web client. All our products are web-based by design. I would say by decision. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that this one is for you, Rohan. On the telco side, do you buy and resell telco SIP or act as an agent for a provider?
We do buy and sell, depends in what region around the world. So obviously in Australia, we're a top tier provider. On a global basis, we've got bilateral agreements with most of the tier 1 global carriers. So either it just depends. We've got channel partners who resell under our brand, or then we've got other carriers where we're interlinking to their SIP termination. So it really depends. But we can do either or.
Okay, thank you. And then one last one, John. This one is for Giovanni. With regard to the Mida Contact Center, do you use the Microsoft ACD, or do you have your own?
No, we have our own. So as I was saying at the beginning, the call gets into the Mida LiteCallCenter from the SBC, and we distribute it. So we have our own queues and algorithms for distributing the call to the agents.
Very good. Thank you, Giovanni, and thank you all for asking those questions. And great questions, of course. And if you have any additional questions, you can feel free to respond to an email that you'll get in the next 30 minutes, which will just be a follow-up email with these follow-up links so that you can ask questions directly to the experts. And then we will have the webinar replay available within 24 hours. So once again, thank you very much to Dwight, Giovanni, and Rohan. And thank you all for attending. And we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day.